Do your answers to D and E tell you anything new about these two changes? That thing I was saying about in part D, it more than doubled, and in part E, it was only a 52% increase. That's what I'm talking about. The magnitude of change in part E was not as big as it was in part D. Question G is a little bit more subjective. Which of the changes, 2009 to 2010 or 2014 to 2015, would you find more alarming? So if you go back and look at this graph, would this be a more alarming change while it's happening? Or would this be a more alarming change while it's happening? That's your call. This would be pretty alarming because all you've ever known is 2s and 3s in your numbers of earthquakes, and then you go to 20, and then you go to 43. So that's probably the most dramatic change in the history. But here, that's a really dramatic change as well, 300 more earthquakes the following year. So that's kind of up to you. That's subjective. And finally, what was the change in the number of earthquakes from 15 to 16? Well, here we actually had a decrease. And if you do the later minus the earlier, you'll get a negative number, and that just represents the fact that the number of earthquakes dropped. So final minus starting gives us a negative 248, or a decrease of 248 earthquakes. If we take that amount of change divided by the original, and again, I keep that negative to remind me that it dropped, earthquakes dropped, then I get negative 0.2795, so about negative 0.28, a 28% decrease in the number of earthquakes from 2015 to 2016. And this is just an opportunity for me to remind you that when we do the amount of change, we always divide by the earlier quantity or the original quantity. That's the most common mistake I see, is that students want to divide by the later number for some reason, and that's just not going to work. So hopefully I've made my case for why percent change is useful instead of just looking at the amount of change. It lets us know that what the size of the change is compared or relative to the original amount.